Welcome to Podcast on Infinite Earths, an unofficial DC Studios podcast. I'm your host, Porter.
And I'm your host, Tyson.
And we're writers, editors, and part-time filmmakers who love superheroes. Welcome to our show. Welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking about the 1978 movie Superman, directed by Richard Donner. So we watched it together. I have never seen it before, and it'd been a while since you have, right?
Yeah, I grew up on these movies, but I was surprised by how little I remembered going through this.
Yeah, it was quite the movie. Definitely, in the nicest way, a product of its time, right? Okay, well, I wrote down a couple of things here. You want to just start going to those?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Okay, so first thing I wanted to comment on was the production design of Krypton, which I thought was pretty cool. I liked that it looked kind of future-y, space age-y, which is the point, but down to those costumes where they was super reflective. And I mean, now that I think about it, I'm kind of surprised that they had the foresight to set up General Zod getting sent to the Phantom Zone, because he wasn't in this one.
Nope. And from my, vague recollection of these movies that I clearly don't know too well, he definitely comes in later, but you're right, it's entirely smart of them to kind of set this up as a series.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess even if they never made another one, it could make sense to have them set up the Council of Krypton and Zod being oh, you don't agree with them, come on, dude. And him being yeah, it's kind of true, but anyway. And then when he has the disagreement about their plan of getting closer to the sun, it's kind of more okay, we've established that the council aren't exactly the smartest people. It still works in a vacuum, right? But man, that spaceship they decided to send Superman in, what a trip.
I mean, I guess the idea was that it looked like a star.
Oh yeah, okay, I see that.
And it did, but yeah, they did not spare any expense on the spikes.
No. Okay, so my next note is actually about the flight to Earth sequence, where I'm kind of surprised that he grew up instead of 3 years.
3 years.
Because in most Superman stuff I know is he's still a baby, like an infant when he arrives in Smallville.
Yeah.
And in this case, he was 3 years old. So it's possible that he'd still have some memory of flying through space. And clearly it looked like through that trippy montage that Jor-El was kind of teaching him through the crystals on his spaceship. So clearly he could retain information at that young age. It was just a different thing, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, it was it felt kind of rushed almost, his intro to Earth, and even the bits on Krypton. It felt a little bit like at times they were relying heavily on the fans knowing things about Superman or comic books, which I think is just a bold assumption for 78, primarily because there weren't many other renditions of the story out there, for one, and also comic books weren't huge with everybody, right? I feel it's maybe easier to expect people to be nerdy and into superheroes to some extent.
Kids, maybe.
Right.
But the people that are going to be paying for the tickets, the adults, might not know.
Totally. So there are definitely some moments where we were kind of lost. We had assumed that green crystal was kryptonite for a long time there.
Yeah, so he finds this green crystal in his barn, and it's assumed that it was part of his spacecraft, right?
Yeah, we saw Jor-El put it in there.
Yeah. And both me, you, and my wife Mallory were all why isn't he getting hurt by it? It's a green crystal that came from his ship, right? And then he just chucks it, and it becomes it activates the Fortress of Solitude or something. And it's okay, maybe it was a key, but that was not
which like I'm willing to accept, and it's strange that that's the way it went down, but my biggest issue is that the crystal was green.
Seriously, they could have made it like blue or purple. You know what I mean? Just like,
Or even just a regular looking crit. Like, you're so right. Like any anything else.
yeah, oh man. So next note, Kansas. So like the whole Kansas thing, right? So he arrives in Smallville, and then we kind of get him in like high school age. Well, the whole thing, all of Kansas takes place with him kind of being in high school age, right?
Yeah, like he arrives and he's just a butt naked little baby boy,
Yeah.
and he lifts up the. Maybe that's why they had him in the pod for so long, was that he could be big enough to lift up the car to show his parents he was different. Like that sequence mattered.
Okay. Fair, fair.
And then you're right, they cut straight to high school.
Yeah, and we got some things of him testing his powers here and there, like him running, facing the train. It was just try to be so efficient by like, we're gonna give you the bare minimum of everything you need to know about his Kansas life, right? Like you got, oh, people at school think that he's lame. He doesn't do football because he's not gonna like show off. We see him show off a little bit, try to test his powers by beating the train, and then his dad or Jonathan Kent being like, whoa, you can't show off, and like giving him a speech about life. And then he like immediately has a heart attack, and then he finds the green crystal, which isn't kryptonite or whatever, and then he's like, oh, I gotta figure out like what to do. And then he gets the speech from his mother about life, and then he just like yeets off,
Just
like
leaves.
it was the most like bam bam bam, like we're giving you the PowerPoint version of this thing. Like
It felt like a very forced sequence of events.
Yeah.
I feel like my script writing teacher would have a heyday with this one.
Well, totally. I feel like up until this point, it feels like the movie had spent a lot of time focusing on the wrong things. Like, I feel like the movie didn't focus a ton on his upbringing, but spent like a long time on that sequence where Krypton was blowing up.
Yeah. Yeah, and a long time with that scene with Lois in the sky.
Yeah, totally.
Just moments that maybe were key but less important. Like I feel like understanding his motivation for being a good person and never wanting to lie, right? Like those things could be a lot more fleshed out in his Kansas upbringing.
Oh,
And
totally, right.
you made a good point about trying not to like compare this to Man of Steel, which is kind of like the Superman standard that we have in our minds. It was kind of hard not to just see the stark differences in story alone, right?
Yeah, because you're right. It's all about motivation, character motivation, what they want, why they do what they do. All of that could have been explained very easily in his upbringing, right? Like clearly the movie's not afraid to just have like silly little montage sequences. They literally could have had like a version of it where they showed him as like a young teenager lying about breaking a tractor or something, and then being like, okay, this is why you don't do that, and then like boom, we would have been like, cool, we got that,
Genuinely.
never have to explain that again. But yeah, you bring up a great point, because yeah, there are scenes that they spend a lot of time with, like flying with Lois, which are technically important to like, oh, they spend time together, he loves her, right? Which comes back later in the movie, but it's kind of hard to care about it in that moment when really you don't know too much about Superman as a person.
No, he's about as much of a mystery to us as he is to everybody else in the movie.
Yeah, genuinely. So next scene or note that I have is about the whole helicopter scene. Before we get into that, like, what are your thoughts on the Superman suit? Yeah.
Yeah. It's been done better since, for sure.
Yeah.
It's the iconic look. I feel like they stayed relatively true to the comic book. But it's kind of hard to look at similar to the 60s Batman suit, where it just doesn't hold up over time. I don't think it's a terrible look overall. I'm actually kind of excited that they kind of leaned a bit towards that look with the David Cornsweet outfit. Even though I will say Man of Steel might be my favorite Superman fit. It's It's so cool. But
It's well done.
yeah, the tights, just the whole body tights is not an incredible look. What are
And
your
I
thoughts
think,
on it?
yeah, I feel like we were saying while watching it, Christopher Reeve is not an unfit man,
No,
but those tights would have served him better if he had like huge muscles, right?
genuinely, right? I mean, Henry Cavill already looks good, but had he been in the tights, it would have been like that much. It's just maybe a different standard for like what like intensely like muscular is.
Yeah, I feel like the full body tights, him not being super muscular. I mean, do you know if they changed the suit at all throughout? Because he did 4 Superman movies, I believe.
To my knowledge, it stays pretty similar, but
Okay. Well, we'll keep an eye on that. Sorry, so back to the helicopter scene. So I feel like that's definitely the big reveal, right? Because we kind of see Superman like fly away from the Fortress of Solitude, but then it's Clark Kent, it's Metropolis.
when I real fast, I thought it was interesting how they made him like so almost kind of cowardly in a way. Like he's supposed to be nerdy, dorky,
Yeah.
kind of Clark Kent, but like kind of the cowering when the mugger came by and whatnot. And we were both kind of thrown off by like his like really like scaredy cat attitude and then like that really smug smirk after he
Yeah.
like caught the bullet.
Seriously. You could have Clark Kent just be, for lack of a better phrase, like lame and not be so cowardly, but maybe like for the time they're like, we really want to show just such a stark contrast. So that's why they went with the more wiry, cowardly, nasally voiced version of that.
Right. I mean, we noticed on multiple occasions, I mean, posture, and he changes his voice a little bit. Like he really leans into that.
Totally. And I think all of those things combined definitely make his first like Superman appearance when he tears open the shirt and like it's super fun, right? And
Yeah.
I love the nod to telephone, the telephone box, but it just being like a outside booth. But then he uses like the rotating doors to change it. It's such a fun idea, and
Yeah.
it was a great introduction. And the helicopter scene is iconic, where he catches Lois, and like I said, I think it was that scene and the scene where Zod is in the Phantom Zone were the only two I've seen from this movie.
They're
And
both relatively iconic.
yeah, so that was fun to see in context. And then I didn't know this, but then he goes on to do a whole montage of saving people throughout the night, which
Yeah.
I think it's fun. I don't know.
It's kind of cool. It begs the question, like, has he just been not doing this up until like he was able to save Lois and now he can like be a hero? Once again, just kind of unanswered questions about how he got from kind of the cave to working at the Daily Planet to being like a hero around Metropolis.
That's a good point. Yeah, like I wonder if, because yeah, it's the media makes it sound like this is the first time they've heard of him,
Yeah.
and he's not stealthy about it like
Nope.
Batman would be. He's like, I'm Superman. I'm here to help, right?
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. Is it at all implied that like because it's a new job at the Daily Planet that he's like new in town?
I think that's the idea.
That must be it.
I'm willing to accept that, I suppose. It feels like the storyline just kind of begs a lot of questions, which you don't have to kill the audience with exposition, but it is also nice to not just leave them assuming most of the time.
For sure. It definitely felt like everything up to that point is just like if someone knew nothing about Superman, this is what he is. Like we said, it doesn't go really into character motivations much, but it's kind of like a Spark Notes, like this is Superman's origin. This is kind of what he does. He saves people. It maybe that's what they're going for. Is just like we just need a bare bones Superman story.
Right, if you're looking to like answer a Jeopardy question about him, you could
Yeah.
get by.
It kind of explains like the Tim Burton Batman with Michael Keaton. A lot of that movie is assuming that the audience knows nothing about Batman. Like it makes like a mystery out of who Bruce Wayne is and why he does what he does, and you find out like, oh, his parents were murdered, and like it really is assuming that you know nothing about Batman. And maybe that's kind of what this is doing, where it's just like we just got to get the Superman stuff out there and the origin stuff out of the way so that they know who they are, and then we can finally do what we want to do
Well, and
with
that's the
Lois.
thing is that line right there is like out of the way. It kind of felt like they were just trying to like throw it out there and then move on as quickly as possible because I mean, in Man of Steel, right, they covered all these points, but just more thoroughly, it feels like. But once again, we're not here to compare. Standalone, I think there were a lot of fun moments. I enjoyed the montages of him saving people, even though sometimes the flying over the green screen wasn't incredible.
No.
I am curious though. This is maybe the scene that like just was craziest to me. What did you think about the rooftop interview with Lois?
Oh man. Okay, so he shows up, leaves the note, right? It feels like an extension of like, oh, what do general audiences need to know about Superman, right? Well, he explains to her his powers, where he's from. It's honestly possible that like if they really really wanted to, they could have started the movie with him showing up at the Daily Planet, and then when he's interviewing with Lois, gives her like the same spiel about where he's from, what he can do, and that could have cut like 30 plus minutes out of the movie. I don't know. I don't know. Like it's one of those things like it was nice, it was fun, right? The banter.
Yeah.
You see him, you know, he has a huge crush on her, which is fun to watch, but it was kind of one of those scenes where it's like, we're not really learning anything new.
Right. Genuinely just kind of rehashing the first portion of the movie and then making some weird sexual comments towards Superman.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, some strange energy from Lois there. Well, it's pretty clear what the energy was, but and then followed immediately by just I honestly I just felt it was too long. They spent so long on that flying sequence.
Oh yeah. And we talked about it. I mean, there's no way like the stuff with their flag like hand in hand. There's no way.
No, according to physics, she would have to be supporting herself in that position, and she's not Superwoman, so
Exactly. Yeah. Beats me.
whatever. I'm not here to speculate on physics for a superhero movie. The scene where he jumps out of the window and just appears in his suit, I think was where they kind of lost me.
Yeah, it was hard because they try with the lowest thing to establish what his powers are, but then clearly he has like a lot of powers. Like, there is an argument to be made that they've made him too powerful. Like, to have kryptonite be his only weakness, and as long as there's no kryptonite, like, he could literally do anything in this movie.
I think that's one of the most interesting things about Superman and kind of his culmination and creation as a character is they originally made him as kind of just this all-powerful being, and the writers quickly figured out that as cool and amazing as that is to somebody, having no limitations is boring really fast. And shows in the future have kind of made maybe an ironic like poke at this, like One Punch Man or Rick and Morty, like just these people with like infinite power who are still just kind of miserable or like struggling against things. But Superman having all these powers, like it kind of just made it no fun. So that was when they added the element of kryptonite and his power being tied to Earth's sun. And those were the moments where they could finally like get a way for them to like they made it easier for Superman to fail, right? Which is kind of what we relate to and what we need in our heroes.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Just kind of the evolution of, rather than him gaining powers, it's like the evolution of them kind of power dampening him.
Yeah.
Even to the point where, like, iterations today, like, he's strong, but he's not, like, unlimited energy strong, you know? Like,
Right. There is a way to take him down. And I mean, that was the original nerf.
oh, yeah. No, seriously. He has so many powers in this movie. Like, we'll get into it because I do want to talk about it in full about like the whole final act. But real quick, last thing before we get going about that, what are your thoughts on like how Lex Luthor is portrayed in this?
It's interesting. They definitely lean into his position as an intellectual by surrounding him by just kind of two less than smart henchmen, right? The just kind of classic trope of like a beautiful but dumb woman, and then just like the definition of a goon.
Totally.
who is just constantly eating and messing things up. So it's interesting how they just make him out to be some evil genius, even though his genius is just relative compared to the
The,
people surrounding him.
exactly. Yeah.
And they make points, of him like reading these thick novels and figuring out kind of Superman's origin and what might like take him down, which was a bit of a stretch, but I guess if he's really that smart, he could figure it out. It was an interesting origin. I was interested that they had him hiding underneath the city. That's not a portrayal that is very common, right? Typically, he's kind of the Tony Stark, Bruce Wayne villain, right? Where like he's just high rise tower billionaire,
Yeah.
LexCorp just owning the world kind of deal. But he's kind of running it from the shadows in this scenario.
Totally has like a hideout and everything. You're right. He's usually a public figure.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on his plot?
Pretty solid plot, if I'm being honest. I think the only downside to it would be that he told Superman about it at all.
Yeah.
But like maybe it was the idea of like having that power of like making Superman choose that was so enticing.
Oh, for sure.
The best way I can describe it is he totally felt like a James Bond villain this whole movie. Over the top, dorky, like hard to take him seriously. I don't know. It like you could have told me that this was just some random guy. You know what I mean? Like I would have known it was Lex Luthor if you'd have told me, right? Or if didn't have a name in this. Like it doesn't really feel like my idea
Right.
of what Lex Luthor would be.
Well, and that's the thing is like I feel like a lot of these villains in DC especially have like really grown into like these complex and almost like scary individuals because they become closer and closer to like these people could be real, right? I mean, most recently the Joker and like the Penguin as like a person downtrodden by society, right? Kind of on the bottom rung of it all and just kind of snaps, or like an actual mobster. It all kind of fits in well. So when you go back and look at like the original comics, you realize a lot of them are kind of goofy. So maybe that was just where they're coming from with Lex, is like,
Yeah.
it is that kind of energy, even though the Lex that's kind of developed over the years and that I'm excited to see in the new movie are actually like scary smart and have these like kind of crazy twisted plans and kind of maniacal, I guess, ways of approaching the world.
You're right. We kind of have to take them in context, right? This movie was made in the 70s, and comic books in the 70s are not what they were today. So you're right. We have to kind of try and think like as if we were an audience member going to see this. It works, right?
Right.
I'm sure it worked great at the time. I mean, obviously, it's a very popular movie, but
And obviously there's a lot to hate here from a modern perspective. I'm sure there could be plenty to hate about our movies coming out today in the future, but I think that's just the only like saving grace here is seeing it from like an older perspective. I mean, they tried to make a comically accurate Penguin, and Danny DeVito, as wonderful as an actor as he is,
yeah.
it didn't age well. Crazy villains, crazy characters. I mean, superheroes to begin with are just kind of a wild idea. So the fact that it's become as popular and incredible as they have today, it's just almost kind of fun to see where we've come from, I guess. I was kind of
Yeah.
just appreciating how far we've come throughout this movie.
That's a fun perspective. I like that. Just kind of like the way you'd look at.
Even like the first Star Wars or something like that, where you're just like,
where-
wow, something is really built off of this, even though objectively this maybe isn't the best movie, right?
Right. You can kind of appreciate where we've gone from there. Yeah, I like that. That's a good perspective.
That's kind of cool.
So sorry, going back to what we were talking about with Lex's plan. So it was a very bold final act of the movie. Like, so you got Lex Luthor, he has the two missiles, and one of them blows up on the San Andreas fault line, essentially risking half of California dropping into the ocean.
Yeah.
Superman, in all of his power, goes into the earth and like somehow welds it back together. Now, I don't remember him telling Lois he could do that.
No. And I remember you saying when we started this, because we were still caught on the fact that he blew those air bubbles in Harley Quinn, but you said you went through the wiki of all of Superman's known powers. Is he strong enough to lift a continent?
Oh man, I it might be on there. I don't know, but it's certainly
I mean, if this movie is canonical, I suppose that's real, but
yeah.
holy cow, that was intense.
Well, and it feels like kind of one of those, if that was going to be a struggle for him, right, to lift a continent, that should have been like the last thing, like the big
The
finale,
climax, can
right?
he
Like
do it?
exactly. But it's kind of like a he gets that done, and then he has another montage of saving people from the aftermath of that fault line being disrupted,
Right.
and then Lois has like a horrific death, and he has a very interesting grief scene, and then I'm gonna be
I think I think Christopher Reeves is a wonderful actor, but that was a rough scene.
yeah, I'm with you there. I thought that him spinning the earth backwards and going back in time was in a future movie because like I heard that he'd done it before,
Right.
and then when he just like flew out of the earth and just started like spinning, I was like, oh wait, it's in this one. And so I really think that is such a bold move for like a final act to have him effortlessly lift a continent and then save a bunch of people and then go back in time, and then somehow going back in time stops. Okay, just help me piece this together here. So he goes back in time. Lois is having trouble starting her car. Before he went back in time, she had a hard time starting her car, and then the boulders came, and that's kind of when it happened, right? When the fault line opened up, she gets stuck in there. So going back in time, her car doesn't start. He takes her, and then he's like, I gotta take care of something. And like Jimmy Olsen's there too. Like he was on the dam earlier, and it was just kind of a strange thing because they don't bring up how he handles the missiles differently.
No, the fault line never happens in that situation when like chronologically it should have at that point. They had that real sweet moments, but nothing happened.
Yeah, it's a little confusing.
I think there's a lot that you just kind of have to like,
Chalk it up to movie logic.
yeah,
Yeah.
just maybe look away from. Don't look like, don't judge it too aggressively. There's not a singular chance for the first comic book fans to break this movie down from like a logistical standpoint. But
Yeah.
yeah, let's maybe end on a happy note. What are some of the things that you liked about the movie?
Oh, dude, this is nothing new, but the music was like
Oh,
magical, right?
yeah.
Every time it come on, like especially when he first pops open his suit before he saves the helicopter, just the music just totally works. It's so fun. I can see why it's synonymous with superheroes, and John Williams kills it, right?
And I think that's why that was like the smartest move they could have made coming out with this first trailer for the new Superman movie is with that like homage to the old music because that is so iconic.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you're totally right. Super like it gets people pumped.
Yeah.
Like if I had grown up on this movie and that's what I associated Superman with, hearing that music in this new trailer would have been like, holy crap, I'm back, right? Like this is gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
I also like we were kind of laughing at some of the special effects, but some of them were quite good, right? Like a lot of the Krypton stuff at the beginning was really well done, and some of the flying looked pretty good. And I mean the miniature stuff towards the end with the dam flood, like it looked good. Like
Pretty neat. They did a good job. Well, and you made a great point that for Star Wars having come out the year previous, I mean, it definitely deserved the awards it got. Like it kind of like pushed the medium when it came to special effects, and they did a pretty solid job with it, as you know, much as we can like scoff and laugh at it from a modern perspective. I mean, I can imagine why it was such a big deal when this came out originally.
oh yeah, no, I believe it. I am curious though. So it's directed by Richard Donner, who is a horror film director. Typically, I feel like I can find like in a superhero movie, like okay, that was kind of a influence, or that's obviously like him bringing up some of his horror roots. The first Doctor Strange film, and I guess the second one, right? You'll have sequences where you're just like, oh, that's creepy.
Right.
and they do that really well. Are there any moments in this movie where you're like, oh yeah, I can tell this was made by a horror director, or is it kind of just
The only moment that comes to mind was like that genuine surprise when you find out Lois is dead. Right?
yeah,
She like ghoulish and like just on the ground and she is gone. It's an actual death. I think that might have been like maybe that scary and shock factor, maybe an influence there. I don't know if that was written in the
yeah?
script before the director even came on,
Well,
but
I mean, her actual death of like the way it was done with
it's pretty
the like
horrific.
dirt coming in, like suffocating,
We
like
were talking like that
yeah,
would be an awful way to die.
yeah. I mean, there are ways to shoot that where it's just kind of like whatever, but the way he did it was definitely like, oh,
A lot of
that'd
terrified
be
reaction
yeah,
shots and
that'd be horrible.
right. So out of the movie, that would probably be the most horror influence that I could imagine, but
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I wouldn't say it was like horror. It was kind of more just like moody. But
mm,
the Council of Krypton at the very beginning, when they're all just like floating heads.
it is kind of an eerie and like
Yeah,
ominous scene, especially for like somebody who isn't familiar with that.
totally.
As an intro, like that is a crazy way to start.
Yeah, I was just curious. I was like, yeah, I mean, usually you can tell a couple bits, but you're right. You're totally right. The whole Lois Lane death is pretty crazy, and he killed it on that.
Yeah, I'm honestly excited to see the other ones. Like I said, my memory around this is hazy at best, but they kind of came out swinging when it came to powers of Superman and establishing kind of his relationship with Lois. And I mean, maybe we'll get some flashbacks of his backstory later on. They
Yeah,
definitely skipped some key years there, but yeah, three more with Christopher Reeves. I'm stoked.
yeah, I'm excited. I wonder if they'll be able to just kind of hit the ground running with the second one, right, and just see what kind of fun stuff they can do with the plot.
Yeah,
So it'll be a good time.
agreed. We appreciate you guys joining us for the beginning of our Superman watch through. Kind of an exciting start, and I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes, but we'll catch you guys next week.
See ya.